So I'm often asked the question, what do I do after we've been to sea and used the boat for a while? We have a little bit of oil that gets chucked out every now and then with the belts whizzing around, the engines whizzing around. Obviously a little bit gets chucked out here, but there's nothing really specific here. There's just a tiny little bit that comes out the oil seals. The big problem for me is I'm going to have to replace these two fuel filters today, and I'm going to talk you through how I do that exactly, because the one issue that a lot of people have when they change their fuel filters is what to do with the airlock that sometimes gets created. Normally that's an easy problem because most engines, modern engines nowadays, will just self-bleed. But what I find for speed is to just loosen off the injectors, 17mm. Now you may not be able to get a standard spanner round there, so it's well worth investing in a set of brake spanners. And by that I mean, and I'll show you exactly what I mean here. Here is your standard 17mm spanner, and here is a brake spanner. The brake spanner has got the round circular, so you can get on purchase onto the injector in multiple angles. But what you can do is you can get over the hose, which you can't do when you're just limited to a single spanner turn. So these are absolutely well worth the investment. 17mm, you only need the one, and all injectors on all Volvo engines are 17mm, and you can get these on at any angle. They're much easier to use because bleeding the engine through, the easiest way to do it, rather than pushing away at the little primer pump, is to just crank the engine over and one by one crack the injector seals until a fuel comes through. But hopefully we won't have to do that today. So the job's, first of all, clean the engine bay out, get everything out of here, check the oil levels, which we're going to do, check the belt tensions, and I'm going to talk you through all of that, change these over. So all of those jobs are going to happen. I'm down in the engine bay, and this is Love Life, Love Boat. Loads and loads of old tissues. I'll use anything to soak up what's in here. Cloths, anything I can find, anything to soak that up. And then I've got a bag to put it all back in afterwards. I also have an old sponge that I use as well. A nice thing about CAD 32s is I've actually got some room to move here, which some of the larger engines you wouldn't have this space. And seeing as we've just driven them quite hard at sea, it's not surprising that we've got a little bit of oil seepage out of there. And then we'll wipe this over with acetone afterwards. There we go. So one side completely dry there, and I'm just going to mop out this side. It's a little bit more gummy in this side. There's a little bit of water in there. I would say that the water that gathers in here does not come in from the back there. I've found that rain, if it ends up collecting in anywhere, it collects in this side. Also, I've had a look in the main bilge itself, and there's not a huge amount in there. I do keep a very close eye on the backs of the engines, because if you do have a bellows split, the first thing you'll end up having is water in your bell housing, and the first problem that most people notice is their starter motor doesn't work. So just keep a good eye on any water you do have in the bilge. Have a good taste of it. If you've been at sea and put your finger in, if it's salty, you've got a problem. If you're on fresh water, again, it's a little bit more difficult because rainwater is fresh. Let's get this cleared out, and then we'll push on with the cleaning, and then we'll put new oil in if we need to. But let's get on with this. Okay, so next job, I've got the bilge is nice and clean now. There's nothing of concern there. I've taken the engine cover off here, and I'm looking at the belt condition and tension. My main drive belt, that looks in good condition. There's no edging, it's not coming apart. And this is the alternator belt. Little tiny bit loose. I want to be seeing about half of that movement there. It's a very simple adjustment, loosening one bolt and tightening the tensioner, and I'll get that done today. But the belt's look in good condition. Always check your belts. If you have anywhere showing anywhere, change them. That's the best advice I can give you, because it's a lot easier changing them when you're in port and in harbour than trying to do this when you're on the water at sea. After checking my belt tensions, the next thing I want to check is my oil. I want a clean dip of this, so wiping it as I go down, replacing it back in, and then I'll pull it out and have a look at see where I am. So I'm just under full. The oil's looking a bit dark, so it is due for an oil change. As I said, I will get that oil changed, but I'm happy with that oil level. I may just put a little tiny bit in there, but I will be scheduling an oil change on both these engines over the winter, and also check the valve clearances. So a tiny bit of oil in here is required, and I'll do that now. I always have a sniff of the oil cap. Gives me an idea of how the engine is running. You'll know oil that's been burning and recirculating. That's a smell that if you've ever smelt it, you won't forget. Literally just a small top up of oil in here. Do not overfill Volvo engines. That's the only piece of advice I would give you. So tiny little bit at a time, pop it in and recheck your level. That's just on full now, so perfect. Happy with that. I'll lock that one back into place. Pop that in there so it doesn't leak oil everywhere. And whilst I'm at this end of the engine, I'll check my coolant level. Now, you don't want to be doing this when it's hot. You want to be doing this when the engine is cold or just been run. And my level is fairly good. It's about halfway up the reservoir there. Happy days. Just going to repeat exactly the same checks on the starboard engine, oil and coolant. I can look at the coolant first, have a look in this one, and you can see it sits, I wouldn't say halfway, but about a quarter of the way, third of the way up the tank. That's kind of where you want to be on a CAD engine. One thing that most CAD owners will tell you is that if you put too much coolant in, it'll kick it straight out again. They sit very happily at about a third of the way up the reservoir. You can put a little bit more in. I would never take it to the full mark because you'll find it will just kick some of it straight out again. But ours run very happily on that. We've run many hundreds of miles with these engines now, and we know that about at a third of the way up, between a third and a half is the place where it's happy. Don't let it drop below that. That's where the full mark is roughly, and so we're just about halfway between where it sits and full. And I always use Volvo coolant. Volvant? Who knows what Volvant is? Some alternative. So we'll get this oil checked on this side, get the belts checked on this side, put this cover back on, and then we'll tackle these fuel filters. Here's a little trick for you. Double glove. I've just pulled the outer ones off that were covered in oil, and I've got another clean pair underneath, so you keep your hands clean. Okay, it's time to tackle these fuel filters. Because we're on inland waterways, we can't have the clear glass water separators, so we use FF194 Fleet Guard separators, and these we have to buy in bulk because we have problems getting hold of them from time to time. But what I need is a pair of new filters, some clean fuel so I can prime the filters, and a cushion. Now, I haven't got a boat cushion that I can use, so what I do is I put a cushion in a couple of plastic bags because I can't get in this gap without kneeling down on something. So that's why I clean the bilge out first. I can kneel down on there. This is the autopilot pump, by the way, and it is very conveniently located. And up there we've got the old North Star radio that still works, but I've got handset at home and I haven't really used it. And then we've got the wiring, the battery charger is up here, and the fuel line that runs to the heater comes off these pipes as well. So the first job I'm going to do is I'm going to switch off the fuel flow that goes to each of those. It stops the air from being sucked through immediately as soon as I take the filters off. So these are a simple turnover. Take the balancing pipes, will go the opposite way, and we'll get these two filters off. But what we're going to do is make sure I've got something underneath to catch the diesel, because the diesel that comes out of that is going to be pretty rubbish. I'm not going to use it again, and I'll show you what's inside those filters and the reason they need to be changed. Never remember which way these come off, but luckily they did tell you which way they spin. So there you go, fill up, fill up, fill up. Spin on his that way, but I can see in here. So it spins on that way, so it needs to come off anti-clockwise. There we go. This one's coming. I'll get that one off. You can hear the fuel bubbling and it's leaking, so that's why you need the bucket and plenty of cloth. There we go. That's one off. And the diesel's dripping down already at the back there. So I need a lot more paper down the back. Have a clean around the seal. I'll get that down there. Then we'll get the new filter, and I'm going to prime the new filter with fresh diesel. I'm just using normal from the pump white diesel to do this, and I'm going to prime it all the way up to the top, all the way to the top of the filter. Just spin a tiny bit around the seal, and then we'll screw that one back on. I'll get it just near tight, nip it up. We'll do the other one. The other one's going to be a bit more difficult to get to, and I think I'm going to need a lot more cloth. So let's have a good look at these fuel filters. There, where you saw me pop it on, you fill it up until it's full, spin it on, and then once you've done that, a 3/4 turn to tighten it onto the seal, which is what you saw me do. I want to show you what's in this diesel, because this is a mess. If you look at the top of this filter here, last year I changed these filters were changed, and we had a bit of a fuel problem last year. Now, I gave the fuel a shock dose of bio agent, which is probably one of the leading ones on the market, but this sludge here, that is showing that I still may have a problem. And bearing in mind we've put another 400 litres of fresh fuel in this tank, that's concerning, because it just means that we are burning through filters. So you can see it's there as well. I've just sprayed myself with diesel, so that's not good. As you can see, that's in there as well. I don't want to tip these out, but I'm going to. I want to see exactly what comes out of these filters, because this looks atrocious what's coming out of these. These filters haven't done many miles, but look at that, and look at the rubbish in the bottom of this pan here. This is just atrocious. So horrible stuff, absolutely horrible stuff. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pour this back into the can, and then go and dump this in the oil dump facility. This is certainly not going back in the boat. This is awful. This is disgustingly dirty diesel. But we'll drain the filters out, put the filters away, and then go from there. And here is another trick for you as well. When you take the filter out to throw it away, get a plastic glove, get it on your hand like you would a normal glove. Pick your filter up, and then stretch the plastic glove across the bottom of the filter without getting your finger stuck in the thing. So you pick it up like that, turn it over, move the glove over the top of the filter. Can't do it and hold the camera at the same time. There we go. I've got to put another glove on there. That stops it running back out the filter again, and means you can pop it in a bag and dispose of it safely without it dripping everywhere. I'm going to stick another glove over there as well, but that's a really easy thing to do, and you can get rid of your filters without them dripping everywhere once you take them out of the diesel. And the last little piece of the process is just making sure I'm in neutral, or just in throttle range, which I do by pushing the ends in, pushing the throttles forward, is one at a time. I'm going to start the engines and I'm going to run them at about 1200 RPM, and hopefully that will drag the fuel through. So let's go for the starboard side first, and we'll run it, well, maybe about 1500, so it's not in the outside that supercharger range, but just so it's enough to drag it through. And I want to run this for about 4 or 5 minutes just to make sure that I've got no airlocks. I'll normally run the engines for 4 or 5 minutes and then repeat the process with the other engine. At this point, unfortunately, something happened with my radio mic and the sound cut out, so I just thought I'd add that little bit in there. I just want to pick up a couple of points. As previously mentioned, I also do check the water filters and make sure they're cleaned out and the weeds are not in the filters themselves, so we've got good water flow through the engine. And also the question about the secondary filters, that's the fine filters on the engine. I tend to change those every second time that I change filters. They don't tend to, the primary filters are great, they really do stop the crud, and I think that when I've taken the secondary filter off, all I've seen in those is really good clear diesel, so I'm really pleased with the work that the primary diesel filters do. One last job to do is to responsibly get rid of what's left here. So 2 bins. First of all, the waste oil container, and into that I'll get rid of the diesel. Don't ever be tempted to reuse the diesel, please do. And the other thing is the filters and all the waste. Don't be tempted to keep hold of your filters as spares. Yeah, you just buy new filters. Let's get rid of this waste diesel. Job done. Properly job done.